one can dream. Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Those of us here and those of us watching in TV land, in radio land. It's good for us all to be together on Shabbat. We're almost there to the end of the Torah reading cycle. That's Sunday night. We have Simchat Torah. And so today is a little bit of a quieter day Torah-wise, because we're at the very end. I'm going to be doing this on Sunday. And that'll be a lot of fun to have Simchat Torah together. So we're still in Sukkot. We're still in the midst of this Thanksgiving festival, this festival of gratitude. Yeah, the sukkah's out there in the courtyard, and I was going to actually say that after the service, maybe we'll head out to the sukkah for those who want. I mean, the oneg is going to be set up, I think, in the social hall, but for those who want to go outside, see the sukkah, the kids did a fantastic job decorating it. It was super sweet. We had it on Sunday, and we had all the kids there and the parents. We did a little pizza in the hut. There was I was reading something that said we should have a stat somewhere on how many synagogues do the exact same event. Pizza in the hut. Half the synagogues probably in the country. I want steak in the sukkah, but we haven't gotten there yet. That's on the list, Madam Co-President. Steak in the sukkah next year. Steak. No bacon in the sukkah for a number of reasons. You know what? You can do kosher sushi. I mean, there are synagogues who have that exact event. Yeah, because if you do like the salmon rolls and the veggie rolls and whatnot, that works really well.
Benji rolls called after your son.
Oh, there you go. I don't know from it. So.
There is no Benji roll.
No.
So
veggie roll.
Oh, veggie roll.
Veggie rolls.
Benji roll.
No, Benji rolls, but not on the Yeah, the mock crab. Okay, with all that aside, again, it's great to be here together. We're going to begin with a little callback to Sukkot, a little Hallel, these psalms of praise that we sing during the festival season. On page 124, in the middle of the page. May the door of this synagogue be wide enough to receive all who hunger for love, all who are lonely for friendship. Together, may it welcome all who have cares to unburden, thanks to express, hopes to nurture. May the door of this synagogue be narrow enough to shut out pettiness and pride, envy and enmity. May its threshold be no stumbling block to young or straying feet. May it be too high to admit complacency, selfishness, and harshness. May this synagogue be, for all who enter, the doorway to a richer and more meaningful life. Let's all turn to our neighbors and say Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. I did not get any candlelighters or kids. We're on page 120 and 121 as we continue with candles and Kiddush, Kabbalat Panim. Let's all rise together. We'll call up Sheila Miller and Renee Ramey. 120 and 121. She's going to pick one of those to read.
Okay. As these Shabbat candles give light to all who behold them, so may we, by our lives, give light to all who behold us. As their brightness reminds us of the generations of Israel who have kindled light, so may we in our own day be among those who kindle light.
No, you light. And,
We can sing together.
yeah, let's do it. You can use the stick there. You can put that in. There we go. Like I said, I've never seen one of those like
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kideshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat.
very nice.
The heavens and the earth were finished, and all their array. On the seventh day, God finished the work that God had been doing. And God ceased on the seventh day from all the work that God had done. And God blessed the seventh day and declared it holy, because on it God ceased from all the work of creation that God had done. Baruch atah Adonai.
Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kideshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu v'shabbat kodsho באהבה וברצון הנחילנו זיכרון למעשה וראשית כי הוא יום תחילה למקראי קודש זכר יציאת מצרים כי בנו בחרת ואותנו קידשת מכל העמים ושבת קודשך באהבה וברצון הנחלתנו ברוך אתה אדוני
L'chaim.
L'chaim.
You have another whole one there if you want to take a taste. You're good. No, I'm saying there's a second Kiddush cup if Sheila wanted to have a little bit of that one. But you're okay. Yeah, okay. I'm with you. You know, just some grape juice. It's okay. You know, the Pinot Noir is somewhere else. Let's take a seat. If you wanted wine, you had to come to Torah study on Tuesday night. That was, you know.
Do you want to tell them what you're going to talk about in the next Torah study?
There's no wine then.
Oh.
Just for Ecclesiastes, we had wine because you need it with Ecclesiastes. So she gets it. We're good. Okay, we're on page 138 and 139, singing of the Chadodi. We'll be singing verses 1, 2, 5, and 9, and we will rise to face the door to greet the Sabbath bride. This is a tradition from the Kabbalists, the mystics, where they wrote this piyut, they wrote this liturgical poem, and they would sing, and they would be all dressed in white, and they would run outside to the fields, and they would welcome the Sabbath bride. It's on the list of things I want to do with this congregation at some point. So one day we'll say in advance when we're going to run out into like the parking lot all in white. It's a greet. Yeah, well, that's his tradition, is that he opens the door for the Sabbath bride. That's been his tradition for many years. That's why he likes it. Lecha Dodi.
La 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 la, lecha dodi. La 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 la, likrat kala. La 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 la, penei Shabbat, penei Shabbat nekabala. La 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 la, lecha dodi. La 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 la, likrat kala. La 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 la, penei Shabbat, penei Shabbat nekabala. Shamor v'zachor בדיבור אחד, השמיענו אל המיוחד. אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד, לשם ולתפארת ולתהילה. Shabbat, penei Shabbat nekabala. La 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 la, lecha dodi. La 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 la, likrat kala. La 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 la, penei Shabbat, penei Shabbat nekabala. Likrat Shabbat, לכו ונלכה, כי היא מקור הברכה. מראש מקדם נסוכה, סוף מעשה במחשבה תחילה. La 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 la, lecha dodi. La 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 la, likrat kala. La 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 la, penei Shabbat, penei Shabbat nekabala. התעוררי, התעוררי, כי באורך קומי אורי, 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 שיר דברי, כבוד אדוני עלייך נגלה. לי, 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 la 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 la, lecha dodi. La 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 la, likrat kala. La 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 la, penei Shabbat, penei Shabbat nekabala. בשלום, עטרת בעלה, גם בשמחה ובצהלה, תוך אמוני עם סגולה. And we'll sing lai lai, la 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 chadadi, la 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 ligat kala, la 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 penei Shabbat nekabala, la 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 chadadi, la 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 ligat kala. La 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 la, penei Shabbat, nekabala.
Let's turn to page 145. At the bottom of the page, entrances to holiness are everywhere. The possibility of ascent is all the time, even at unlikely times and through unlikely places. There is no place on earth without the presence. On the next page, the Baruch Hu are called to worship.
Lai, 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 lai. Lai, 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 lai. Lai, 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 lai. Lai, 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 lai. Lai, 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 lai. La, la, lai, 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 lai. Lai, 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 lai. Lai, 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 lai. La, la, lai, 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 lai. Lai, 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 lai. Baruchu et Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach le'olam va'ed. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach le'olam va'ed. Lai, 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 lai. Lai, 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 lai. Lai, 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 lai. Lai, 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 lai.
Let's take our seats. So Renee, I was thinking about the what you had asked before about some of the choreography, of the service, the body language, in terms of the service, and thinking about this. So we, for the Baruch Hu, right? There's a bend, right? Like there's a bow, and actually, there was a question today. I don't know if you had seen this before about. I had always learned that for Baruch Hu, you bend at the knees and then at the waist, and there was a discussion today about you just bend at the waist for Baruch Hu. But I've always learned you bend at the knee for Baruch Hu.
The knees for the Aleinu.
Yeah,
and the
and
Baruch
that
Hu
too.
is already the waist.
Yeah, you see, so it's a question of who you're learning from, whether you bend at knees or waist, for Baruch. But I always learn knees for Baruch, because Berach is knee, but so it's the same root. Berachayim are knees, Baruch, it's the same root, right? And so for Baruch, you bend Baruch, and then, but by the time you get to Adonai, you're up again, because you're not supposed to be looking down at your feet when you say God's name. It's the same with the lulav shaking, for those who remember last week, that the lulav, you never shake lulav down. You bend your knees and shake, but you're not supposed to actually point the lulav down towards the ground.
And I was taught to follow the rabbi.
Exactly. A very good answer. And so I was just thinking about that idea of how we bend, and so we bend at the knees, then at the waist, depending on the prayer. But for this one, I was taught knees and then up, for Adonai. It's also a call and response prayer, as we know. So, in traditional settings, the chazan, leads the first line, and then we respond the second line, and then the last line is repeated instead of again. And so that's also part of the prayer. And the fancy name for a call and response prayer is a? You don't know yet? Doxology. A doxology is a call and response prayer. D-O-X, and then ology, O-L-O-G-Y. It's one of those fun words you learn in rabbinical school. But the reason why we learn it is that for prayers that are doxologies, for prayers that are call and response, those are the ones that need a minyan to pray. So we always say you need a minyan of 10 people to pray. It's sort of not true. You need a minyan to pray certain prayers. You can say the Shema by yourself, right? You have an evening Shema, right? You can say Hashkivenu by yourself, but for prayers like the Baruch Hu and for the Kaddish that are doxologies that are call and response, by the definition, there's a calling out, and so other people need to respond. And that number to respond is? 10. Very nice. A little bit of prayer tidbits while we're here. Okay. Let's continue now on page 150 for Ahavat Olam.
אהבת עולם, בית ישראל, עמך אהבת, עמך אהבת. תורה ומצוות, חוקים ומשפטים, אותנו לימדת, אותנו לימדת. על כן אדוני אלוהינו בשוכבנו ובקומנו נשיח בחוקיך ונשמח בדברי תורתך ובמצוותיך לעולם ועד, כי הם חיינו ואורך ימינו, ובהם נהגה יומם ולילה, נהגה יומם ולילה, ואהבתך אל תסיר ממנו לעולמים. ברוך אתה אדוני, אוהב עמו ישראל, אוהב עמו ישראל.
Lovely. On page 152, let's rise together for the Shema.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Baruch Shem, Kevod Malchuto, Le'olam Va'ed.
Let's take our seats. So the hand, so this is a question that we often get about the hand. So it's supposed to be about concentration, is how I learned it, that you sort of like shut out everything, by covering your face for the Shema. So you're really focusing on God's oneness, the unity, the meaning of the prayer, because, really The Shema, if we were to have a creedal statement, sort of like a statement that's center of our belief system, like the Shema would be the closest to it, that we would have. I would argue there might be other ideas, but the Shema is certainly nice, simple sort of statement of faith, that Adonai is God and God is one. One thing that I learned from my teachers was that when you do the hand in front of your face, you actually leave gaps in your fingers that you could hypothetically peek through, but you leave the gaps there. So I don't know why the exact reason was, other than what I'm going to say here, which is that when the three fingers are apart, it's a shin. And the shin is one of, the letters of Shaddai. It's on the mezuzah as well. So you sort of have the shin there, in front of your face. You're having God's presence in front of you as well, or at least a representation of the shin right there. So that's why I like keeping the fingers apart. It's similar to the Kiddush cup. That when you have the Kiddush cup, that, you make Kiddush, and it's actually supposed to be like this, that way you have the three fingers up, for the shin. Yeah. Yeah. Not good at all. Oh goodness, where that tradition comes from? I'd have to Google that in terms of it's a great question, because I'm saying some of these things get passed down from generation. If I had to bet, Tony, I would have to bet it was Kabbalistic. I'd have to bet that this was probably them. But do you have any thought on that one?
During the oneg, I'll tell you the street version of it.
Ooh, she has the extra, some extra insight. I love it. Okay, yeah. Yeah, the second verse gets whispered, in different synagogues, because that first line of the Shema, the Shema itself is from the Torah, so that has more resonance. It says say that really loud, and then the second line's actually not from the Torah. It comes later from the rabbinic tradition, so it gets whispered to show that it's not as important as that first line, because the Torah is divine, so to speak, and the other one doesn't have the same oomph to it, I guess, is how I would put it. There's another reason also that I learned, which is interesting, I think, that, as I said, like this line of the Shema, the idea of monotheism, and like how important this statement is for our tradition. It's a statement of our faith. It's just so big. It's so huge. It's such a holy statement that after we say it, we're almost cowed by it. We're almost sort of in awe, and we have to almost like drop our voice for the next part. Just the awesomeness of what we just said. We have to just sort of take it down a notch, just to take a step back with the next line.
But throw back to the end of Yom Kippur. That is the one time a year that we shout out the second line.
Yeah, that's right.
In the last Shema.
Baruch
Shem kevod malchuto le'olam vaed. Baruch Shem.
Because it's like I also imagine them thinking, time to go. Why are we saying this line 7 times? Get out of here. Say it once. Time to go. Okay. But I love it. It's dramatic, and it just gets higher and higher. It has to be a little dramatic for an awesome day. It needs to have a big ending. 154, V'ahavta.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בהם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני Adonai Elohechem.
Adonai Elohechem emet. We're going to turn now to page 157. Standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we were taught before ever we stood at Sinai's foot. Together, that wherever we go, it is eternally Egypt, that there is a better place, a promised land, that the winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness, that there is no way to get from here to there except by joining hands, marching together.
And we will march together in singing Mi Chamocha. Lai 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 la lai la 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 lai 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 la lai la 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 lai 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 la lai la lai la 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 lai lai la lai lai la 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 lai Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai mi chamocha neder b'kodesh nora tehilot osef ele נורא תהילות אוסף אלה. מלכותך רהוב בניך, בוקר הים לפני משה ומרים. זה אלי ענו ואמרו, זה אלי ענו ואמרו. אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. אדוני לעולם ועד. לי 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 לי
And you see, John, it's transliterated correctly on this page. He had mentioned to me there was a transliteration mistake on one of the things we handed out during the high holidays, and I was thinking about Mi Chamocha. I didn't tell you the story, though, because we didn't have enough time for the story. So the story goes that, has anyone heard the story of Nachshon? Nachshon ben Aminadav. And so Ari's heard the story, of Nachshon. So the idea is that the Israelites are standing, by the shores of the sea, with the sea not split yet, and the Egyptians coming down on them, and they're thinking, oh my God, we're all going to die. This is not going to end well for us. And they're all fighting with each other, and their confusion, and Moses is there praying and holding up a stick, and nothing's happening. And then Nachshon decides, you know what? I'm just going to start walking, and so Nachshon starts walking into the water. It's up to his knees. He's got nothing. Up to his hips, got nothing. It's rising and rising and rising up. And when it gets to his mouth, that's when the sea splits. And so they're saying that when it gets to this song, because this is part of the Song of the Sea, right? Mi chamocha. And so the reason why it's a cha in the first part and not a ka, it is in the second one, is that in the first one, he's gagging from the water. So it's mi mocha, because the water is in his mouth at that point, and he's spitting it out. And then the next part, mi kamocha, is when the water is down, and he's able to say the word correctly. So, no. No, it's a story of why that is the same. Why there's a difference. There's probably a better, more grammatically proper answer to that following a long, unaccented syllable, you don't have the dagesh. The Nachshon story is more fun.
Full explanation available via Oneg as well later
Yes,
on.
yeah. What's up, Bar?
I thought you were saying
Yeah. Kamocha, yeah, it's a ka, So, okay. See, I was planning on doing an Ask the Rabbi for the sermon, but now I've decided just to split it up a little bit throughout the thing. We'll still do a little bit anyway, depending on time. But the rabbi's full of stories tonight. We're on page 160 for Hashkivenu. Hashkivenu, of course, has a special resonance during the festival of Sukkot because we're asking God to spread the sukkah of peace, right? And so we think of peace, which is itself sometimes a little bit impermanent, right? We don't always have a life of peace. Like, we don't always have that. But in these moments, we ask God to give us at least a little bit. Give us that shelter of peace for Shabbat and extending through, the weekend. God bless, that we should have a peaceful time and to be protected from all the different things that might hurt us when we're in our relatively temporary shelters, so to speak, during our festival of Sukkot. Okay, Maria, please.
השכיבנו אדוני אלוהינו לשלום והעמידנו שומרנו לחיים. השכיבנו אדוני אלוהינו לשלום והעמידנו שומרנו לחיים. ושמור צאתנו ובואנו לחיים ולשלום מעתה ועד עולם. השכיבנו אדוני אלוהינו לשלום והעמידנו שומרנו ברוך אתה אדוני הפורס סוכת שלום. שלום עלינו ועל כל עמו ישראל ועל ירושלים ועל כל עמו ועל ירושלים שלום ועל ירושלים ועל כל עמו ועל ירושלים שלום. ברוך אתה אדוני הפורס סוכת שלום. שלום עלינו ועל כל עמו ישראל. שלום עלינו ועל כל עמו ישראל.
Let's turn now to page 162 as we continue with a song for Shabbat, Vishamru. Looking for this.
Okay. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל אותי לעולם, אותי לעולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. כי 6 ימים עשה אדוני, עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. וביום השביעי שבת ויהי נפש, שבת ויהי נפש, שבת ויהי נפש. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם.
I'm guessing the woo came from Coleman, right? One can assume, yeah. I'm not trying to get other camps, like what they do, but the woo is definitely Coleman. Right? Yeah. No, but like each camp has their own thing, so it's like, but I'm assuming the woo. I like the woo. The woo is nice. Well, I'm saying, guys, that's what I was thinking, was that like each synagogue, had their different minhag for what they do with Vishamru, right? And so they get up and they spin. I've seen them running around the sanctuary. I've seen a lot of different stuff for Vishamru. Yeah, back in Raleigh, yeah. They later changed it, yeah. So everyone has their own unique tradition. Yes, very good. Okay, let's move onwards to the Avot v'Imahot, and what did I forget?
Before we do that.
Oh, yeah. Well, we're not there yet. We're almost. Yeah, one more week. Yeah.
But don't you want to tell
Yeah.
them?
Yeah. We'll tell them. We'll let them in on the secret. That's okay. If you look at page 168, before we jump into the Amidah, you'll see the Gibru wrote there, and it's hard to believe because we're still, living in Florida. But summer is over coming on Sunday night. So we have on the Jewish calendar, we have the two seasons, summer and winter. And so from summer, it gets a little cooler, when we get there. But look at the very bottom of the page on 168. It tells you on winter that's Shemini Atzeret Simchat Torah to Passover, and then from Passover to Simchat Torah, that's summertime. And so this is the last week we're going to be asking for the dew to fall. We're going to be moving on to wind and rain, which in Florida we actually don't need any more wind and rain, at least during the summer months, to be sure. So we just wanted to make that mention. This is our last week of Morid Hatal, and then next week, Mashiv HaRuach Morid HaGashem. And so the calendar is changing. Of course, in Israel, which is really what we're thinking about when we say those words, it's for the rainy season to come. Again, here we don't need the help. But in Israel, you need the help for the rain to fall. So it's in a little extra prayer there for the weather. Okay, with all of that said, on 164, we can rise together for the Amidah. One more little bit of choreography while we're here. It's yeah, well, I'm going to tell you a little bit. So it's actually when you're approaching. So the Amidah is supposed to be when you're approaching God in prayer, right? And so what I was taught, was that you can't just like run up to the king, so to speak. You can't run up to the ruler and say, "I want all this stuff." That's not how it works. There has to be an element of humility there. And so the way that I was taught was that during this prayer, the Adonai Sfatai, is that you take 3 steps back first, and then 3 steps forward to greet God. That you're showing a little bit of humility. Then you stand on your tippy toes because it's fun to stand on your toes. But more of just again reaching, ascending towards holiness. Yeah, what's up?
What I learned is that you're going back from the realm of humanity and entering the realm of heaven.
Oh, wow! Who'd you learn that from?
I think you.
Cool. I don't remember that one, but I'm apparently really wise, so that's really good. No, I don't think that was me.
Sounds so much better than my teacher saying every chazan needs to move his tuchas. So.
Yeah, you see. It's good exercise, and it becomes like, 2 steps back, 1 step to the left. Cha-cha slide now. Okay. 164.
Adonai sefatai tiftach ufi agi tehilatecha Adonai אבותינו ואמותינו, אלוהי אברהם, אלוהי יצחק ואלוהי יעקב, אלוהי שרה, אלוהי רבקה, אלוהי רחל ואלוהי לאה, האל הגדול, הגיבור והנורא, אל עליון, גומל חסדים טובים וקונה הכל, וזוכר חסדי אבות ואימהות, ומביא גאולה לבני בניהם, למען שמו באהבה. מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן, ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם ועזרת שרה. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיה הכל אתה רב להושיע, מוריד הטל, מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיה הכל ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר, מי כמוך בעל גבורות, ומדומה לך, מלך ממית ומחיה, ומצמיח ישועה, ונאמן אתה להחיות הכל. ברוך אתה אדוני, מחיה הכל. אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש, וקדושים בכל יום יהללוך סלה. ברוך אתה אדוני, האל הקדוש.
Let's take our seats. We're on page 173. May these hours of rest and renewal open our hearts to joy and our minds to truth. May all who struggle find rest on this day. May all who suffer find solace. May all who hurt find healing on this day. May all who despair find purpose. May all who hunger find fulfillment on this day. And may this day fulfill its promise. Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh ha-Shabbat. On page 175. Ever-present one, may we, your people Israel, be worthy in our deeds and our prayer. Wherever we live, wherever we seek you, in this land, in Zion restored, in all lands, you are our God, whom alone we serve in reverence. Baruch atah Adonai, she'otcha levadcha be'ira na'avod. On page 177, let's continue together at the top of the page. God of goodness, we give thanks for the gift of life, wonder beyond words, for the awareness of soul, our light within, for the world around us so filled with beauty, for the richness of the earth which day by day sustains us. For all these and more we offer thanks. Baruch atah Adonai, hatov shimcha ulecha na'eh lehodot. On the next page, 178, a prayer for peace. Shalom Rav.
Shalom Rav al Yisrael amcha, tasim le'olam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael amcha, tasim le'olam. Ki ata hu melech adon lechol hashalom. Ki ata hu melech adon lechol hashalom. Shalom Rav al Yisrael amcha, tasim le'olam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael amcha, tasim le'olam. וטוב בעיניך לברך את עמך ישראל בכל עת ובכל שעה בשלומך. שלום רב על ישראל עמך תשים לעולם. שלום רב על ישראל עמך תשים לעולם. תשים לעולם. תשים לעולם.
Let's turn to page 371. As our thoughts turn to our loved ones, members of our community, friends, neighbors who are in need of healing, whether they are in need of physical, mental, and spiritual healing, we take them into our hearts this time of prayer. We're on 371 in the middle of the page.
מי שברך אבותינו מקור הברכה לאמותינו. May the source of strength who blessed the ones before us help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen.
We are thinking of this moment in time, Pat Adamson, Eric Adler, Raymond Douglas Alcorn, Marty Bilo, Evan Bin, Rosemary Buckwalter, Ann Cole, Richard Corwin, Mark Edelstein, Mickey Edelstein, Benjamin Edelstein, and Brian Edelstein, Danielle Heyman Feist, Eric Fisk and Z Fisk, Philip Gelman, Bob Gold and Carolyn Gold, Jennifer Gousset, Barbara Green and Buddy Green, Marvin Hollander, Stuart J., Robert Jaffe, Lori Cattleman, Doris Kirshner, Wendy Sugarman Krosnoff, Hank Corin, Dr. Sonia Linke, Michael Lynch, Dolores Munsick, Ruth Poehler, Gloria Radeski, Lee Siegel and Stacy Siegel, Dr. Cindy Steinman, Pete Tanner, and Fred Truax. Would anyone like to mention a name of someone they're thinking of at this time of healing? With all these names mentioned and those mentioned at home, taking them into our hearts, we conclude.
מי שברך אמותינו מקור הברכה לאבותינו. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shelema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen.
We continue with Tefillat Halev, the prayer of the heart.
the one who makes peace in the heavens descend on us, and the world will say amen. May the one who makes peace in the heavens descend on us, and the world will say amen, amen, amen. Descend on us, and the world will say amen. May the one who makes peace in the heavens descend on us, and the world will say amen. Oseh shalom bimramav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol yoshvei tevel. Amen, amen. Ve'al kol yoshvei tevel. Oseh shalom bimramav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu. Amen, amen. Ve'al kol yoshvei tevel. May the one who makes peace in the heavens descend on us, and the world will see amen.
So as I mentioned, I was planning on doing an Ask the Rabbi, and then I decided on one foot, thinking about some of the questions I've been asked recently, to do a little bit more of a learner service, to sort of add a little bit here and there about sort of different elements of our Shabbat evening worship. Just a quick note on silent prayer, because it always has tickled me. If you turn to page 180, you'll see Elohai Nitzor. And so, as a lot of you know, I'm sure, I do a lot of interfaith work, and I do a lot of work in the community, with different faith traditions, and there's often a moment of prayer, and so they'll ask, the priest, the reverend, to just, can you open us up with a prayer? And they just pray. Like, they have a sense of spontaneous prayer that I think is uncomfortable for the Jewish people, like it's not our home run swing, because our prayers are all in the book. All of our prayers have been standardized, from generations, thousands of years, 1,000+ years, some of our prayers. They're in the book. You turn to this page get the prayer for creation, the prayer for peace, the prayer for this, the prayer for that. And it wasn't always that way. Like 2,000 years ago, they had the idea of, the Shabbat service has to have a creation prayer. Shmuel, talk about creation for 2 minutes. And Shmuel would get up and he would do a prayer for creation. And then, Yitzchak would come up and do a prayer about revelation and about love and whatever it is. And eventually it gets to the point where they said, this is not working so much anymore. We need a prayer, right? We need a prayer that we're going to say every week. The whole community is going to do Ma'ariv Aravim for creation, or Ahavat Olam for revelation. And that's how eventually you get a prayer book. We have the prayers in front of us. So silent prayer is the one opportunity, right, for just our own words, our own thoughts, our own feelings. But someone decided, I don't know how long ago it was, I'm seeing a hint down here, but a while back, they decided, I'm going to give you a silent prayer too. And Elohai Nitzor is right there. That was meant to be the silent prayer. That if you needed extra help for a silent prayer, if you can be trusted enough to have your own thoughts for a minute and a half, you have here the Elohai Nitzor to use as a crutch for silent prayer. So it's one of those things. It's there. It's meant to be, again, a spontaneous moment, but there it is, just in case you need it. And it's a good prayer, but we don't always use it. We might sing it once in a while, but I like to leave it for our own sort of thoughts, our own different ideas. But I just like that we couldn't leave it alone. I had to put it in there just in case we needed an extra prayer in front of us. Does anyone have? We have a couple of moments for it. But anyone have any questions about the prayer service? And Tony, go ahead. Which little prayers?
Elohai Nitzor.
Oh, yeah, 100%. Yeah, 100%. They have it there because this is one of those prayers that was created a long time ago. And yeah, it's in every prayer book, Elohai Nitzor, and amongst the others. What I thought you might have been asking, and I'm not sure depending on the prayer book, is that one of the things I love about Mishkan Tefillah is they give you a little like news and notes and like source material in the bottom of the page. The conservative prayer book, the new Sim Shalom, like has really good notes on it as well. And Birnbaum has good notes too, if memory serves. Yes, yeah, you're closer to it than I am right now. But some different prayer books that have, and I like that. It adds a little something, I think, to the prayer service when you have a little bit of sense of where they come from, what some of the sources and some of the different ideas. But yeah, 100%. The only change that we have is, maybe less liturgy, like less prayers than some of the other sort of Orthodox prayer books might have, and some of the more gender-neutral, egalitarian sort of changes, a couple theological twists, and maybe 2 or 3 prayers. But aside from that, it's basically the same prayer book.
You will never hear this sung in a conservative
No.
shul, and
Yeah.
the Reform do sing Elohai Nitzor.
Yeah, because it's meant to be a silent prayer, and we decided, let's sing it out loud too, because, it's here. So let's have a nice melody, and it's a beautiful melody as well, at least the one that I know. Any other questions? Yes, Sandy?
When do you know when you do the Baruch Atah and when you do the vows?
It's interesting. That comes from tradition, too, because I was thinking about that with the Amidah, is that for the Avot Ve'imahot, you have 2 bows, one in the beginning, one in the end, and that's the knee and waist bend, Baruch Atah up at Adonai, so you get that both for that. But for Givurot, the one right after that, there's no bow. Because Atah Gibor, there's not a Baruch there, and then at the very end, it's the Baruch Atah Adonai Mechayeh, Hakol or Meitim, depending on where you are, and there's no bow there. And I'm saying that's one I don't know. That is like a tradition that you have. You know that one?
Yes.
There you go,
All of my
please.
teachers say it's tradition.
Yep. I could said that easy enough. No, but exactly right. And so that's a really good question. And so for the vote, we definitely have it. We have the bows. And I was even looking, we did the Thanksgiving prayer. We usually do that in English, and on 177, I think we do the English there usually. But on the page right before, you have the Hebrew, for the Modim Anachnu Lach, and that's a bow too. That's not even a Baruch, but that's a bow, Modim. Yeah, so it's Modim Anachnu Lach again. You're back up again. So that's a gratitude prayer. We are thankful to you, and it's a show of thanks and a show of appreciation. There's a bow. Yeah, Karen.
I grew up in the Americans called Reformed Church, but it was strictly Reformed.
Mm-hmm.
And we didn't bow at all.
Yeah.
The only bow that was included was the Benachim. That was it.
Yeah.
Nothing needed. So it's all new and interesting to me.
Well, that's why it's always like a pet peeve, when someone says reformed with an ED as opposed to reform, because reformed gives a sense that it's over. You did it, and it's now reformed Judaism from what it was. Where reform, it gives a sense that it can continue to reform as it goes on. And so 100% right. Like when I grew up in my Reform synagogue in Queens, like there was a lot less Hebrew. I feel like I remember when I was 10 to when I was like 15. Like it changed a lot in a few years. It went from reading via Hafta in English, thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, with all to reading the V'ahavta et Adonai, then it came quickly to chanting the V'ahavta, in the Torah trope. And that all changed in the span of 5 years, maybe give or take, depending on what synagogue you were at, of course, and so the more Hebrew is different. I mean, I don't know how many people here grew up in a Reform synagogue? Yeah, thank you, R. Yes. You were. It's different, to be sure that in a Reform synagogue, if you grew up in it, it's barely recognizable, to today in a way. Like you would have one line of Hebrew, like you'd have the Shema, maybe a couple other things, but not a ton past the Shema.
And many places would not have talitot, would not have kippot.
No talit, no kippah. Yeah, Gary, yeah.
Just a memory. Once in a conversation with Rabbi Dreiser, he was saying that he used to look out and he'd see all these people bowing all over the place. And he said there were certain times when that was appropriate. But he said a lot of times, he said it was kind of from one synagogue to another
Tradition, yeah.
to learn as part of their coming out to when to bow. And it's not the same all over. There are certain times, of course, when we're supposed to, but
Yeah.
years in New York into another synagogue, and we would see things we don't do here.
Yeah. Oh, just to that point, like it's the old joke of like the new rabbi at the synagogue, and he says to rise for the Shema, and half the congregation rises, and the other half goes, and they come up to him and they say, we don't do that here, we sit for the Shema. So next week he says, okay, when they remain seated, and then half the congregation goes, and they complain to him, and then he goes, God, I don't know what to do. So he goes to, the emeritus, he goes to the previous rabbi and says, what's the tradition? I tell them to stand and they argue. I tell them to sit and they argue. And the rabbi goes, that's the tradition. So that's what it reminds me of. Because, each place has its own twist, its own way of doing things. Yeah. A good question. That even stumps me sometimes. No, the Reconstructionist movement springs out of Mordecai Kaplan, the rabbi and philosopher, and it was sort of religion as a progressive sort of movement, not politically progressive, but it evolves through time, sort of like the Reform movement. The major switch was that Kaplan did not believe in a personal God. Kaplan believed in God as sort of being revealed maybe through history and nature, but that God doesn't intervene in the day-to-day. You can't call out, which made prayer very interesting in the Reconstructionist, movement. But even they have evolved a lot as well. And so that's why you ask, what does it stand for today? I've met Reconstructionist rabbis, and they're all over the place theologically. Like some of them feel like they're Reform rabbis, some of them feel like they're conservative rabbis, and it's just, it's a little bit muddled, in my opinion. I'm sure they would see it differently. I'm just saying that the way I have always taken it has been, Judaism as civilization, peoplehood, very important for the Reconstructionists. So I think that's a great question. That's a really good one. Yeah, Heather? Yeah.
I've been to some that tradition from mostly after the services at the end. Just
Yeah.
afterwards, they go out into their social hall, do it there before they start doing it. And then there's temples like here, we do the Kiddush at the beginning of service, but the mostly at the end.
Yeah.
Can I answer that?
Well, I'll say for here at least, that's one that I inherited. But
The answer is 2 words in Hebrew, minhag hamakom,
Yeah,
the
tradition.
habit of the place. So this is a question that we should ask you. How did that become what it became?
no, but it is a good question. Yeah, because I don't know the history of it. I just know that when I came here, I got a service sheet and said, and saw the split that that candles are always first, obviously, but so the real question comes in Kiddush and Motzi. And I got to tell you, I've been in 4 different places, and each of them did it differently. You don't remember Chavarim, but Chavarim, we actually handed out platters of little cups of Manischewitz, at the end of the service for Kiddush, which I always liked, frankly. I thought that was very nice. And then we did Motzi afterwards. In California, we did it all in the Oneg. We didn't do it in the sanctuary. We did candles.
I remember that in Texas, like, we, after, like, when the service ended,
Yeah.
we did Kiddush, then Motzi.
Yeah, that's right. Kiddush and Motzi at the very end. And occasionally...
Candles, Kiddush, whole service, Motzi.
And then we also did the amoeba of blessing a couple times, which I enjoyed. The amoeba of blessing, which I would bring the challah. This is also, by the way, a little bit pre-COVID, you can tell. But you sort of bring the challah to the middle of the room, and then everyone gets up and touches the challah or touches someone who is touching the challah to create a one organism. That's why I call it the amoeba of blessing, that everyone's just sort of around, touching me, touching you, sweet Caroline. That's a different song. Yeah. Oh, no, that was the right song. Okay. Yeah. I like that. I would be in favor of bringing that back if you're asking me. But I'm saying that I like that idea of doing Kiddush together. I think that's a lot of fun. Really good questions, everybody, today. And I just, going back to those prayer books, I remember one of my first student pulpits. I always have to say the name, Temple Beth Emet V'Or Progressive Shaarei Tzedek. It was a 4-synagogue merger who just recently, God bless them, the past 5 years changed their name. But it was their tradition. They still had the old Union prayer book, not even Gates of Prayer. They liked that book. And I had to read from that book, and I did not enjoy it. And because I just remember that part of, "Thou art the God who neither slumbereth nor sleepeth," and then feeling like I was Sylvester the cat leading prayer. And I did not enjoy it. He got that one at least. Okay, so, yes, Sheila.
On that same topic,
Yeah.
I really enjoyed the Yuletide holidays prayer. Oh, yes. It's more contemporary and it's to me. I really
Yeah. Yeah, no, I really like that prayer book too. I like the readings of it. I think we're still learning how to use it, but I really like it, and I just find, like, to me, when I look at the English in particular, let's put the Hebrew aside, but the English in particular is that, and this book is sort of similar in that way, but I feel it even more, I guess, the holiday book, is that there's something for everybody. And like some of the readings I'll read and I'll go, this is not for me. But I might do it anyway because someone else might connect, to that reading. But I think it's laid out beautifully. They have a lot of great stuff in there, and it's a fun one to lead from. It's still learning how to use it, to be fair, but I am enjoying it, and it's a really, to me, it's a masterpiece of liturgy, even the parts that irritate me. But still, because again, it's a lot of liturgy, right? We've learned there's a lot of liturgy today. Yeah. Mechitza. Yeah. Orthodox. In fact,
And conservatives in Israel.
In Israel, yes. So I was at a UU church yesterday for a meeting, a Unitarian Universalist in St. Pete, and so we were taking the tour of the building, and they sort of showed the sanctuary, and they had like the 2-story, they had and they had the what do they call the upper deck, so to speak. And there's another balcony. There we go, the balcony, right? And so I turned to the UU minister, and it goes, "Is that the mechitza?" And he had no idea what I was talking about, so I had to explain it to him, obviously, on what it was. But yeah, to have the balcony where the men are on the bottom and the women are on the top. In the more modern Orthodox synagogues, at least that I've seen, they usually don't have it anymore. What they'll have it side by side, men on one side, women on the other side, and they'll have like a lattice down the middle. So you can't really see through, but at least it's better. I always said it was the biggest fight that I had with Elizabeth in Israel, is that I wanted to go to some of the Orthodox synagogues. Just, you're there when in Rome, so to speak. You want to go around and sort of see the different places. So, in Jerusalem, on, which street is it? Oh, goodness. Well, on one of the main drags, I was going to get the street name wrong, but one of the main drags, you have the Heichal, you have like the big Orthodox temple that everyone sort of goes to. And so classmates and I, we decided that we were going to go. And of course, it was the male classmates who went, but Elizabeth sort of came with. And we were all on the bottom in this like mass of humanity, just like praying. Had to be thousands of people sort of praying. And there was one woman in the synagogue on the roof, and that was Elizabeth. And so she said, yeah, I'm not doing that again, in much different verbiage. But she did not enjoy her prayer experience, being all by herself up in the balcony while we were all down there praying. So, but that's also, again, it goes back to what you're used to. I mean, that goes back to tradition, that there are plenty of people in that movement, obviously, who they like that. They find that meaningful, and for me, it's beyond me. But that being said, it's not the only thing. Ari, you have one more question? Because we're going to finish out. What's up? Yeah.
In terms of the prayer book,
Yeah.
most congregations use Mishkan to belong to the use of the yoke. I remember this, most of the like Stags.
Yeah, so the Reform movement, a lot of them transitioned to Mishkan Tefillah over the past 15 years, I want to say. Because the reason I remember is that when I was out of seminary, I think my first year out in the field, we were still at Gates of Prayer, but by second year, we had Mishkan Tefillah. And the prayer book that I got that second year, this was 2008, I guess, that's the prayer book I use today. It's actually this prayer book. And the reason I know, and I can always tell, is that the binding was shot after 2 weeks. We sent them back to get them re-glued. This was actually happened very quickly. But I said, no, I'm keeping my original first run, Mishkan Tefillah. I want to have the collector's item. And so, yeah, it's from the CCAR, and they sort of sent it over. So, yeah, it's been about 15 years, because this is my 16th year in the rabbinate. It's about 15 years in Mishkan Tefillah. So a lot of people have been using that one. Every once in a while, you have Gates of Prayer still, and I guess a couple places still use Union Prayer Book. I can't even imagine where. I have it in my office. I can show you. It's an older prayer book.
It's the older one with all the old words.
Yeah, with all the old words in it. Thanks so much for the conversation, everybody. A little learning on prayer. It's a lot of fun. We're going to go to 586 for Aleinu.
Practice some of our bows.
Practice some of our bows. Ari, you want to open the ark with me? Let's all rise together.
And that's something they had the kids open the ark up in a whole congregation. That was it. Yeah, back to
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו, ושמו, ושמו אחד.
Let's take our seats. We're on page 597. Our thoughts turn to those who have departed this earth, our own loved ones, those whom our friends and neighbors have lost, the martyrs of our people whose graves are unmarked, and those of every race and nation whose lives have been a blessing to humanity. As we remember them, we meditate on the meaning of love and loss, of life and death. Congregation was saddened to announce the passing this week of Bernice Lippman, one of our members for many years, mother of Wendy Rath. Services had already been held in New York, and so we're just sending our condolences to Wendy and her family on her mother's passing. We also announced the passing today of Emma Barth. Emma Barth, also a longtime member of our community, mother of Michael and Alice, and grandmother of Daniel and Aaron. Services are going to be on Wednesday at David Gross Funeral Home at 1 p.m. And so I think if it hasn't gone out yet, it's going to go out soon for the email. And we're also in the Shloshim period for the memory of John Conway, husband of Leah Conway. So we send our condolences to Leah and her family on this loss. We also think of those who died during this last year. Sid Bolin, Joan Keller, Leo Weintraub, Nina Stegg, Janet White, Phyllis Kraus, Phyllis Allman, Sheila Buckwalter, Bob Mansfeld, Albert Gart, Barry Dabowski, Ann Blumenkrantz, Shirley Matler, Richard Clausen, Mary John Resch, Liesel Schick, Jay Roth, Fran Brickman, Michael Vereb, Janice Lenderer. And this week we think of those who died at the season in years past, the Yurtzites: Barry Azarva, Herman Baum, Bernice Bin, Regina Bragan, Irving Cohen, Eunice Copeland, Helen Cowan, Walter Eastman, Fanny Eisenstein, Joseph Friedman, Leo S. Goldman, Laurie Grader, Irving Green, Louis Gross, Milton Guzik, Marcia Hack, Mary Hess, Stanley Eagle, Max Casper, Martha Keller Katz, Myron M. Kimball, Catherine Kittenplan, Abraham Levine, Richard Liss, Shlomo Looper, Sanford Mankin, Mildred Marks, Jeffrey Allen Martin, Esward Matler, Bertha Mayer, Anthony Michelli, Sylvia Milter, Oscar G. Moss, Frida Pollack, Edith Rappaport, Melvin Richmond, Stella Rindy, Abraham Rofi, Benjamin G. Ross, Renee C. Ross, Abraham Roth, Isaac Rautenberg, Norman Rautenberg, William Schaefer, Abraham Schwartz, Irvin Schwartz, Esther Cohen Scheinbaum, Leona Smillig, Seal Smith, Sylvia Starkman, Lillian Strumpf, Warner T. Warner, and Julius Weinstein. Is anyone observing a yurtzeit saying Kaddish for any reason? Let's all rise together for the mourner's Kaddish. Yitgadal v'yitgadash shmei rabach, b'alma devra cherutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon uv'yomechon uv'chayei dechol beit Yisrael, b'agala v'zman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shmei rabah mevorach le'olam l'olmei almaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, V'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shmei dekudesha barichu le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tush v'chata v'nechemata da'amiran b'yama v'imru amen. Yehei shlomo rabba min shemaya v'chaim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom bimromav hu yaseh shalom. Aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. May the one who creates harmony on high bring peace to us, to Israel, and all of the world. As together we say, amen. Please be seated. We invite Sandy Sunter to come up for a few announcements. I always say few. It might not be the right, but I say few. Aye. We call up Sandy Sunter for a plethora of announcements.
It's so because there's so much going on.
Yeah, it's so much fun.
Isn't there? I'm telling you. Yep, you got it. You should be up here giving the announcements. Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Shabbat Shalom to everybody here in our sanctuary, and Shabbat to everybody at home. Rabbi, thank you. This was really interesting. Oh, I can't turn. I'm not supposed to turn around. No, because then people can't hear me. Anyhow. Thank you, Rabbi. That was really interesting. Love to hear those stories and little tidbits of white tradition and things. That was really, really interesting. And Iris, welcome back. We're very glad to see you this week. And Maria, thank you for your beautiful music. And thank you to Heather or Pete who did our streaming tonight. Pete. All right, just a reminder that Rabbi has started his Introduction to Judaism class on Tuesdays at 6:30. Then at 6. Sorry. Huh? Yeah, the classes, yes, it's both. And then following that is Rabbi LaBelle's Bible study, and we resumed it last week. It's at 7:30. Last week we had wine and cheese, and it was just such a lovely evening. Sunday, October the 16th, 6 o'clock, we will be gathering for Simchat Torah and Thai. For those of you who made reservations for dinner, our dinner will be at 5:30. But we'll be honoring our religious school students who are pursuing their religious education, and the 4th and 5th graders are going to get their prayer books. We're also doing consecration, am I correct? Yep. Consecration. It's just going to be a very lovely evening, so I hope to see all of you there. On Tuesday, October the 17th at 9:30, we will be joining with Temple Bethel to share a Simchat Torah Yizkor service. It will be in person and both streamed via the Temple Bethel website. The next Wednesday, the 19th, 7 o'clock, the membership committee is holding an event at Bassano's Cheesecake in Safety Harbor. So this is for all members, prospective members, new members, anybody. Please come. It will be at 7, and it is in Safety Harbor, and the actual address is on the website. October the 23rd, for the first time, we're going to be having a blessing of our animals. So those of you who have a pet of any kind, please feel free to bring them, caged or in a carrier, whatever. This will be really fun just to see our furry family friends, as well as our regular family members. And last but not least, Thursday, October the 27th. At 7 p.m., there's going to be a movie showing at the Studio Movie Grill in Seminole. This is in collaboration with Gulf Coast Jewish Family Services. We are co-hosting this. It is a film called The Invisibles. It's being sponsored, it's their Reel-to-Reel program, and it's being sponsored by Sue Heyman and Mike White. So I hope some of you will come to that. The movie is about 110 minutes, and we would love to have a showing of people there from our synagogue. So I hope to see some of you there. And that's one of those theaters you sit and you can eat food, and it's very nice. Well, we talked a little bit about I have something from the Lubavitch Rebbe today. Imagine you could open your eyes to see only the good in people, the positive in every circumstance, and the opportunity in every challenge. Shabbat Shalom.
Thank you, Sandy. Yeah, the movie should be really fantastic. I've never seen it. It's called The Invisibles. It's about 7,000 Jews who stayed in Berlin in 1943, and they were living amongst the, community sort of in secret, and they were dyeing their hair and sort of changing things around, and but they wanted to stay. I guess we'll see on the movie. I've never heard the story, so I'm very interested in seeing the film. And there's going to be a discussion afterwards. There's going to be some conversation. All right, we could wait. Yeah, I would imagine. Yeah, $12. I think you got a dessert or something. I'm not sure, but yeah. But it should be a very interesting night, an interesting program. Okay, we're going to finish with a little music. We had talked about a little bit before how we're transitioning from summer to winter, and now we're going to get into the rainy season, and we're going to do a little bit prayer for rain.
And we talked also about the Reform and Conservative. The Conservative and Orthodox movements have a full prayer for rain and a whole service just for the prayer for rain. So this entire service is concluded in one song this evening. I hope you like it. משיב הרוח, מוריד הגשם. משיב הרוח, מוריד הגשם. We pray for rain, for geshem, for our seedlings are hurting. We call for rain, for geshem. As the buds thirst to bloom, we ask for rain, for geshem, to shower us with hope. Shema kolainu, and gift the world with geshem. Mashiv haruach, morid hageshem. Join me. Mashiv haruach, morid hageshem. We asked for strength, for soundness, yet life challenged us with dangers. We call for love, for pleasure, yet with lives lost we're full of grief. We pray for health, for our bodies and our souls, and we're trying to recover. Shema kolainu, and shower us with geshem. Let the wind blow and the water flow. Shower us with blessings for the earth, for all lives, for the Spirit. Abundant rain, Mashiv haruach, morid hageshem. We're gushing with the emotions as the roaring of the oceans. We're struggling with the currents as we're drifting with the waves. We need the sky to cry with us, and when we pass through waters, Shema kolainu, and gift us with your love. Remember Avoteinu ve'imoteinu, how you gave the rainbow of your love, raining with your light. Renew your covenant, pour on us your teardrops of life. Life, let the wind blow and the water flow. Shower us with blessings for the earth, for all lives, for the Spirit. Abundant rain, Mashiv haruach, morid hageshem. Mashiv haruach, morid hageshem.
Lovely.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom. Let's rise for Motzi. Yeah.